Hello everyone, welcome back. You are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel and you are looking at the steel drivetrain components in the upper portion of a Singer Touch and Sew 600E. Whew, said that all in one breath. So what I'm doing right now is going through a procedure that you may have seen me go through before on any number of sewing machines, and in this case a Slant-O-Matic, because the mechanicals of this machine, they're a little different, but they are for the most part similar. And I've told all of you, when you're trying to get a machine to wake up, the plastic pieces, which generally cover levers or buttons or dials. You can see my hand over here on the front of the machine. You're actually looking at the machine from the back side. And what I'm doing is I'm looking to see if I can get any movement, right? So you saw, I don't know if you saw this move. So, you know, I know that there are metal pieces that rub against other metal pieces. So we're going to put some oil here. I'm starting with sewing machine oil first. And if that doesn't work, I can always go to a penetrant oil. Keep in mind that unlike on that beige machine that you see right there, which I ended up using lots of penetrant product on to get it to wake up, this machine has some movement, not a ton, but it has some. The other thing that I should say is that the mechanism of this machine is familiar to me. So when I push on the lever that I just pushed on a minute ago, you'll see another item moving. Look at this piece right here, right? You see it, how it moves out. Well, that needs to be oiled because, of course, this is, and you'll see this when we change the angles, this, of course, is the slotted shaft that gets raised or lowered when you are adjusting for the decorative stitch cams that are in a stack. You're looking at the top of the stack, so you're seeing it from that angle. All right, what else can we do? I've got this piece here, and by the way, if you are not familiar with how different areas of a sewing machine operate or move, you want to look at your manual. So for example, if I want to know how to move my needle position, for example, I have to know how the portion of the device that I interact with, or that you interact with on the front of your machine, how does it work? Does it rotate? Does it rotate to the left, to the right, 360 degrees? You may not know. If you have a lever like I have here, and you can see, I'll show you what I've got this is what I'm grabbing a hold of on this side. Well, do I need to push down? The only way to know is to see what's moving behind it, if anything. So I'm going to push down on that lever I just showed you. And when I do, can I move it? Well, I just did, and we got movement here. So there's some good news here. Part of the good news is that the machine does not appear to be at least entirely frozen. And so what am I doing now? Now that I can move it, I want to see, the next thing I want to see is what is moving and what is not. And when I see pieces moving, that tells me, okay, I need to look for metal that's sliding against metal and get some sewing machine oil in there. Because even though the machine may be moving, and I may want a little grease on that spot, I want to ensure that it's going to continue to move. Because remember, sewing machines have the great vintage models that we all love. They have moving parts, and those parts are metal, and they need to be lubricated. The parts of a sewing machine will often turn or they'll pivot or they'll raise up and down. For example, I know that, and right now I have my hand on the hand wheel, and you can see the shaft turning here, so let's go ahead. Now I know that I have oiling holes here. However, when you're waking a machine up, you may need to use oil in places that you might normally not do so. That's not normal oiling. That's just getting a machine to wake up. There's also a place in here for grease. I'll be adding more grease, but we're going to start with the oil first. So I know that this is an area where oil is going to go. And as I turn, that's a bubble. As I turn the hand wheel, which I'm doing, that you can see, I don't know if you saw this, but the oil I place in here is eventually going to be sort of suctioned down. Of course, this is an area for oil, as is this. We're getting our drive shaft. All the places that our drive shaft has to turn. I think I got a lot of oil in that spot. And I'm being careful. I do not want to get oil. I definitely do not want oil to pool. Shift the camera here for you a bit. I don't want oil to pool down in here, because where I've got this flashlight now, that is where the bearing is, and this is the worm gear of the motor. I am going to use a drop or two of the SAE 30 weight oil that I've shown before, but I do not want sewing oil there. All right, what else can we... Now some of these items here I'm trying to move with a with other levers on the front of the machine, but they're not wanting to move as much. Getting some movement, but not a ton. So I know I've got to add more oil. And keep in mind, when you add sewing oil, that does not mean that everything that you've oiled is going to just instantly start to move. Sometimes, as with the penetrant oils, we need to let them sit for a while and do their magic. Now, another way to sort of gauge, is everything moving or is something still stuck? One of the ways you will discover this is when you're trying to get something on the machine to function. You can go through the manual and say, okay, what needs to function, what's not functioning? And if you're not sure how it functions, again, that is where the manual is your friend. So for this particular thing, it likes to move this way. You never want to force something to figure out how it moves, because if you do, you might break it. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here with our restorations. So now I'll show you here. You can see that this piece, it's like a sleeve, right? And when I push down and I move this, you notice how it's sliding? If you see my videos on the other Slant-O-Matic machines, this is an area that really needs to move freely. It's one of the, I don't know if I should call it a vulnerability. It's a weaker spot on the Slant-O-Matic design. When I say weak, I don't mean that it's not built strong. It's just, it's very vulnerable to sticking. And if it sticks, it is a royal pain to try to get it to function. So we definitely, oh, there, look at that. So, woo! I don't know if you guys saw that, but the whole, it looks like the, let me put this up here. Look how high that comes. Wow. So again, and I've got this shaft over here too. I'm going to oil that. Now I was getting movement. You can say, well, it's moving fine. Why do you need to oil it? It was designed to have oil there. And I've just gotten very lucky that it was willing to move. All right. Now let's see here. What else can we... Now, this, when I push on this lever, it will go this way, but it won't go the other way because there's not any further for it to go. If you did not have a manual and you're looking at your machine and you're not seeing the moving parts, you might try to force it in a way that you don't understand that it will not move. Once you see the mechanism and you see how it moves, you know it shouldn't go any further over in this direction because it can't. So again, understanding, you don't have to, we're not all transforming into engineers here, but what we're trying to accomplish is to try to understand, okay, but what are the basics of what is moving behind the facade of the machine? And that's really important to know. It can really help you figure out what needs to be fixed, and can also help you, well, prevent you from damaging things. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to break out my grease, and we'll see where we can put some of the grease while we're here. Okay, I've got my syringe here. I'll have to refill it soon, but I have the grease that I use. I'm just going to put a little ribbon of grease. I think I'll maybe get a little bit of a zoom and see if this shows up for you better. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take my syringe and just put a ribbon of grease on the part that I can get to, which is this round gear. And then I'm going to turn the gear, because remember the gear, shift our view here, you'll see the gear is actually when you see this gear turning, it's coming in contact with another gear which is on a horizontal plane down below, and I can put a ribbon there. Now, when you do this, you may think, oh, I need to keep putting more grease in because the grease is vanishing. But that's not the case, and here's why. The grease that we apply only needs to fill the teeth or the grooves of those gears, and they don't hold a lot. So when you see this little section of grease, that's grease that the machine has actually squeezed out, right? So all of this is what I just put on the gear. So that's okay. The gear is getting the grease it needs, and any that it doesn't, it'll just sort of, I don't get your cotton swab caught in your gears. It'll get tangled. But you can see, and if there's a little bit of excess grease, a little bit's fine, but you can see it sort of curling out. You can see it's basically squeezing out the grease. We don't need any more there. However, I can put some right here on my, there's just no point in wasting it. It's brand new grease. On the Textilite gear, let's see. Get my syringe here, and as I turn the Textilite gear, see if I can get out of my own way a bit here. And make that a little bit more visible for you guys. So I'm just, as my gear turns, I'm just going to go ahead and put a ribbon of grease. I had to recharge my syringe there a bit, so I'm going to just, like I say, I'm putting it right here on the Textilite gear, and as it turns, I can just feed it until I believe that I've gotten the gear covered. But again, not all of the grease is going to, you can see now, you'll see the reflection of the grease. It's now wetting the gear, and as it does this, it is also spreading grease on the worm gear of the direct drive motor, which is why we need grease in the first place here. But again, you can even see where it's, it's squeezing out the excess grease here. So don't, people sometimes think they need to sort of drown gears in grease, but they don't actually work that way. Now, is there any mopping up here I should do? Take a look, and I'll just turn this a few times, and then, like I say, this here is just excess. Doesn't really do anything. And that should cover us. And I had one last area here. There's a sort of a flap that follows a piece of steel, and I'm going to put grease right on that spot so that when it slides, it has that grease in place. Make sure I've gotten in the right spot there. Okay. Now, I think I have one other place. There is a worm gear that sits below our cam stack. And I don't think I'm going to be getting my grease syringe in that right spot. So I'm going to take, I just took a cotton swab, got some grease here. And the way to see this little area, I can actually catch it right here. And I'm taking the swab and I'm putting it right, the shaft is coming right under the edge of these cams, these built-in cams. And by getting the grease, there's some old grease there, but I'm just getting some new grease in there, and I can even come in on the other side if I want. And come in over here. And all the old grease wasn't gone. It wasn't really hard, but I removed what I could see of the old grease. And let's see if I've got any excess over here. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, okay, but how do you know if you've gotten all of the areas? What if there's something you've missed? This again is an example of remembering that analog devices like this, they do tell you, but they don't tell you with beeping and codes and software. They tell you by how they function. So this, I will be showing, this machine came with its original manual. I could have found one online, a PDF of it, because Singer manuals are some of the easiest in the world to find. I'm sure there are exceptions, but this is the initial run at lubricating. There was no real dirt in here. I removed any old grease that I saw. There wasn't much. There was some. And this is my initial attempt at greasing and oiling the top mechanism of this machine. Of course, that's just one area. So going back to that question I posed, how do you know you got it all? Well, one of the ways that you will learn that you've gotten it all is because when I go to test the machine and get it to try all of its functions, if one of those functions is not working well or not working at all, that's usually a sign that, well, unless something's broken, typically it's waiting for service. It needs to either be cleaned, lubricated, or both. So there we go. That is the first time I've ever lubricated a Singer Touch and Sew model. It is, again, much of it is familiar to me. I do recognize quite a bit of it, in part because it is very similar to the Singer 500 series that I showed in an earlier video. And so again, you look at the machine and you see all of these pieces, that I was, moving back and forth. And again, do I know all the settings yet? No, but again, the manual will help us in that regard. But this was just, my spitballing going in. If I had never seen a Slant-O-Matic before, chances are I might not have wanted to even try this without looking at the manual, and the manual tells you how things are supposed to work. And if they don't, that's a clear sign that, oh, okay, I need to go in and try to understand, what does this do? But I had an idea based on my prior experience with Slant-O-Matics. So again, it's not nearly as frozen as the Simpsons department store machine. That's the beige machine I was referring to earlier. So onward we go. I will continue going around the machine. Next video we'll keep going and see what the machine has to say with its other areas, the other mechanical areas that can cause issues. And no, I have not attempted to plug the machine in. I have not even remotely done that yet. My approach is to inspect the machines, try to move things, see what's not moving, because I know I'm going to need to do that before the machine functions. And if I plug it in and try to run it, it is possible, not always a sure thing, but it is possible that the machine could end up getting taxed in a way that it shouldn't. And there's no reason to do that because it's not awake yet. And none of us are interested in running a marathon when we've just gotten out of bed. So that is the way I treat my machines when I'm waking them up. And so stay tuned as I go through this, and we will discuss more about the touch and sew. I'm looking at it mechanically now. Well, then we'll talk about how it performs and why I believe it was Singer's last incredible, great engineering marvel from the vintage age. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.